This video is brought to you by the people at Dead by Daylight Mobile. Welcome, friends and foes, survivors and killers. Let's sit around the campfire together and talk about Dead by Daylight. Specifically, the new licensed arrival to Dead by Daylight Mobile, the Japanese horror classic Ringu. On the last video about DBD Mobile, I talked about the next era of horror, a major update to DBD Mobile that's given the game a massive boost in terms of graphical quality and user friendliness. Now that update has finally arrived, and with it comes a whole new icon of horror history. One that's been in the main game for quite some time and is finally making its way to NetEase's mobile platform. Coming in with the release is the new killer Sadako Yamamura, better known as the Onryo, as well as the new survivor Yoichi Asakawa. Both are alumni of the Ringu franchise, one of the most impactful horror franchises in the history of cinema, and a welcome new addition to the cast. I've praised both Sadako and Yoichi as characters in their home franchise and by extension DBD before. This is the first time we've seen them on the mobile platform, and Sadako's power seems particularly well suited to the game's controls. Sadako's power, Deluge of Fear, works in the same way it does in the base game, and for anybody who doesn't know what that does, I'll give a quick recap. Her power is split into two rough parts, Demanifestation and Condemnation. At any time, Sadako can use her power to enter or leave the Demanifestation state, which renders Sadako undetectable for as long as she remains demanifested, but removes her ability to interact with survivors. She loses her collision with them and the ability to attack. Think of it kind of as a weird version of Wraith's cloaking ability, combined a bit with Spirit's phasing. In addition, she will flicker in and out of reality, kind of like Spirit, causing survivors to be unable to continuously perceive her. Between her naturally small terror radius and his intermittent stealth, Sadako makes for a solid stealth killer in the vein of Wraith, but with a slightly different, spice that mixes map ability with an inevitable ticking clock that survivors have to deal with. This is where Condemnation comes in. Several TVs will spawn throughout the map at the start of the trial, and Sadako can teleport to any one of them from any distance, so long as it's turned on. TVs will periodically turn themselves on after being used, but survivors can take a tape out of a TV to manually deactivate it, at the cost of condemning themselves. Condemnation is status effect that exists on survivors and gradually builds up over time as long as they're carrying a tape, or when Sadako teleports to a television that's near them. The only way to remove Condemnation once you have it is to put a tape into a deactivated TV. And you want to do so quickly because if you don't, she can kill you instantly from the dying state regardless of how many times she's hooked you. Anyone who's played or played against Sadako on the main game will remember their first Condemnation kill. It's a very neat touch that harkens back to the original movie and novel Sadako comes from. 7 days after viewing the cursed videotape, Sadako will find you and she will kill you. And once the Condemnation stacks start to build up, it's only a matter of time. It's up to you as a killer to juggle the survivors and their Condemnation. Since you don't have a chase power, you'll rely on getting sneaky hits with your stealth or slowing the game down by forcing survivors to get rid of their Condemnation stacks instead of doing generators. Well, that's the idea anyway, because in practice, I guess it's time for a confession. I am not very good at Sadako. I don't dislike her, I really don't. It's just that she's never a killer I sunk a ton of time into on the main game, much less on mobile where she's only just come out. But I have something to share with you guys that I think might offset my somewhat lackluster Sadako skills. I have a friend. Yes, I know, big flex over here. 6-year-old me would be so proud I finally have a friend. And this friend is the fellow YouTuber and Sadako enthusiast April Ghost. I'm going to let her take it from here for a bit, so that somebody who knows this killer inside and out can point you in the right direction. Hell, I'll probably learn some things myself. Take it away, April.
Hey, April here, coming to you from the other world via the horrifying power of robot voice. I've been a Sadako main since the first day of her release in the core game last year. Her power might be challenging to master at first, but I promise, if you put the time into learning the ins and outs of her playstyle, she can be a terrifying killer. Whether this is your first chance to play her or you're just looking to learn more, here are some tips to help you live your best afterlife and condemn survivors to their heart-exploding doom. Stealth is key. Sadako can switch between demanifested and manifested states at will. While demanifested, you cannot attack survivors, but you lose your terror radius and your red stain, and the only sound you make is this creepy, screechy boast sound. It's hard to hear over generator repair, so most of the time, you will be able to sneak up on survivors with ease. Look at your hands. There are other perks to being demanifested. For one, you're completely invisible when more than 24 meters away from a survivor, so you don't have to worry about being spotted creeping up from across the map like a little creepy crawler. You also flicker in and out of invisibility when closer to a survivor. This flickering effect can be used to mind game survivors at most loops, showing them a false move while you're visible and then changing your direction after you flicker into invisibility, only to manifest where they least expect you. If you want to know exactly when you're invisible to survivors, you only need to look at your hands. They'll flicker in and out as well, so you'll know exactly when to sneak by the window at Shack or suddenly 180 at a car loop in Haddonfield. They can't block you. Yet another benefit of being de-manifested is that you do not have collision with survivors until you manifest. So if you're chasing an injured survivor and you see one of their healthy teammates up ahead ready to body block, you can simply de-manifest and walk right through them. Condemned pressure is everything. The last thing you can do while de-manifested is teleport or project to any powered TV on the map. There are always 7 of them, and each of them are near a generator. Each time you teleport to a TV, every survivor within 16 meters of that TV will gain a stack of condemned unless they are hiding in a locker. If a survivor reaches 7 stacks, the ring around their portrait will glow red. They will be revealed to you by killer instinct, and upon being downed, you can mori them on the spot, regardless of how many times they've been hooked. This could turn the whole game in your favor. Learn everything you can about the condemned process and how to control it. The better you understand condemned, the better you'll do with her. You can monitor condemned progress. It can be easy to lose track of how many stacks of condemned a survivor has, but fortunately, the game provides a few tools to help with that. Keep an eye on the survivor portraits. The ring around the portrait will be black if the survivor has no condemned at all, white if the survivor has some condemned, and red if the survivor is ready for a heart attack. You can also take a look at the survivor themselves. Survivors will have a shimmering glitchy effect that will become more intense as they gain more stacks of condemned. TVs are your strongest tool. Pay close attention to your TVs. If the screens display white static, it usually means there are no survivors within 16 meters of that TV. If it displays the curse video, there's a survivor hiding somewhere nearby. Try these builds. There are so many viable playstyles and builds for this killer, but if you're looking for something great you can run right away, try Sloppy Butcher, Fearmonger, and Jolt to slow the game down, and Spies from the Shadows for extra information. I consider all of these very strong perks on Sadako, so it's very easy to get set up with a great build right away. For a more advanced build, I recommend Sloppy Butcher, save the best for last, Jolt, and Eruption, paired with her strongest add-ons, the iridescent videotape and bloody fingernails. There's so much more to learn on this killer, but I've covered the basics here. May these tips help you curse as many survivors as your heart desires. Happy condemning!
April is a true legend, someone I've wanted to work with for a very long time on a video, and thanks to the great people at DBD Mobile for letting me work with her on this one. Let's say you wanted to follow this sage and sound advice and test out some of these fantastic builds for yourself. How do you go about unlocking the perks and add-ons that you need? Well, unlike the main platform's blood web system, DBD Mobile has the blood market system, where you spend blood points you've earned to choose between different perks, add-ons and offerings on procedurally generated shelves, giving you plenty of choice to ensure you get exactly what you need. In addition to earning blood points the traditional way by just, playing matches, you can take part in the daily and weekly challenges to grind through the blood market and get the gear you want. There are separate blood markets for survivor and killer, so if you want to specialise in one side or the other, you won't get stuff from the other side gumming up your shelves. Speaking of builds, both Sadako and Yoichi come with 3 new perks that you can add to your build as teachables. Sadako brings Merciless Storm, Floods of Rage and Call of Brine, at least one of which will be very familiar to anybody who's played the main game recently, while Yoichi comes with Dark Theory, Parental Guidance and Empathic Connection. Parental Guidance especially, I think could be run in way more builds than I normally see it used in. I love running it with a Firecracker or Flashbang to literally disappear in a puff of smoke like a stage magician. Sadako and Yoichi arrive on the mobile platform on March the 15th, and I'd highly recommend downloading the app and getting ready as quickly as possible. The Sleeping Blossom Sadako skin will be available only for the first 2 weeks of the release, and it's absolutely gorgeous, so if you want to snap it up, download DBD Mobile for yourself and give it a go. I've got a link in the description and pinned comment so you can try it out and experience the next era of horror firsthand.